Hi guys, welcome to my channel Lush Gardener. I hope you guys are fine and are safe at home. So guys, today we are going to be talking about part 2 of dehydration, which is slightly complicated than part 1 dehydration. If you have not watched part 1, I will be putting the link in the description below. You can check it out. So guys, part 2 is related with soil and roots. So this is what we are going to be talking about. Now in part 1, as I said, that if your succulent is healthy, if the soil is correct, if the roots are healthy, the succulent will open up within 24 to 48 hours of watering it. But over here, as you can see, the soil looks very different. Now this was when I started 6 years back. I really had a tough time with succulents. I was in a complete mess, because forget about the soil mix, people didn't even know what succulents are, and getting care tips out of it was almost impossible. As you can see over here, the soil looks so heavy and compact, and these are my succulents. Now these were not this small size, they were huge, but because of the soil I had to keep cutting the stem, because every now and then they kept getting rotted, and at the end of the day this is what I used to be left with. Each day the succulent was getting smaller and smaller, and I was completely disappointed. I didn't know what was going wrong, but I knew that I had to do something very soon. And the ones that were not rotting, you can see they were acting up like this. The succulent was completely dehydrated. No matter how much of moisture or how much of water I added to the soil, the succulent still did not open. You can see the soil is slightly wet over here, but it's not opening up. So I knew that time was ticking, and it was very important to make certain changes, otherwise I'm going to lose all my succulents. So I started doing a lot of intense research. Now from this research, what I understood is succulents prefer loose, porous and very light, airy soil. So I didn't know what perlite and pumice was at that point of time. I didn't even know what exactly is the soil requirement for my succulents. But what I noticed is, though this red soil was well draining, whenever I used to water, because there was a drain hole, the water used to pass through the drain hole, but the quality of soil was heavy, it was compact, it was basically suffocating the roots of the succulent. Now the soil was so heavy and it was getting so compact around the root area, it was not letting the roots absorb any water. You can see over here the soil is moist. It was moist for a long period of time, but it was not helping the succulent open up. So I had to be a little resourceful. So I searched around what is the best thing that I can do, and that's when I seen my aquarium. Now that's where I used my aquarium sand, because I knew that this sand is going to make the soil loose, airy and porous at the same time, because I didn't know what perlite and pumice was at that point of time. So this was the immediate thing that I could have done. So I quickly went ahead, took the aquarium sand and mixed it with the garden soil. Now here I used around 70 to 80% of aquarium sand and very little bit of the red soil, because I knew that the red soil is very heavy and compact. So I reduced the amount of the red soil. So this is how the transformation looks after I made changes to the soil. You can see on the right hand side how the succulent has opened up, and that's how it was when I got it from the seller. So you can see the amount of difference the soil change has done. Definitely this took some time. The change did not happen over 24 to 48 hours. It took some while, because I had to change the soil as well as I had to change the pot, but you can see the amount of difference that has been done. Another important thing, whenever you are uprooting a succulent, because you want to change the soil, always ensure that you do this important step, and that is checking of the roots. Now over here, as you can see that the roots are healthy. It was only the soil that was very compact around the root area, due to which the succulent was not able to absorb water, due to which the succulent was extremely dehydrated, but the roots are healthy. So here we do not need to be worried about the roots, because the roots are completely healthy. The only issue was the soil mix. So now that we know the soil mix was an issue, so we are going to change the soil mix. We are not going to do anything else. We are just going to change the soil and repot the succulent in new soil. So the same thing applies. Once the succulent has been repotted in a new soil, we are going to wait for some days. Now, usually when we repot, we water after 4 or 5 days. But here, because the succulent is dehydrated, we are going to water after 2 or 3 days. So let's say that it's been 2 to 3 days of repotting the succulent. It's time to water the succulent. At this point of time, we are going to do a complete watering, that is until the water starts passing through the drain hole. Now guys, please do not miss the succulent, or please do not not mist the soil, that is not going to be enough for the succulent to get hydrated. At this point of time, the succulent needs a lot of water. Now guys, this is cinnamon water. Please don't get confused. I'm not using any kind of fertilizers right now. Guys, this brings us to the next point, which I might have forgotten to mention this earlier about fertilizers. Whenever you're repotting your succulent, be it a new succulent or your older succulent, if you're doing a repotting, never ever add fertilizer immediately. You have to wait for at least a month. Let the succulent get adjusted in the new soil, and then you can use fertilizers if you're doing so. Please do not add fertilizers as soon as you repot your succulents. That will harm your succulent. So now here we are done with our complete watering. The water has started to pass through the drain hole. So we are done with our complete watering. Now all we have to do is just wait. Now guys, over here we have done the change of soil. We have done the change of pot. So it is going to take some time for the succulent to open up. So over here, as you can see, after at least a week, the succulent has finally opened up, which means that the roots are now able to absorb the water. The soil is no longer suffocating the roots. So this indicates that our transplant of succulent has been successful. So how do you determine whether the soil is good or bad for your succulent? So guys, over here is a perfect example. As you can see, just by the look of this soil, you can see it's very heavy and compact. When I'm trying to poke this soil, it does not even move. It's almost rock solid. So you can imagine what's going to happen to the succulent roots if they are going to be sitting in such type of soil. So it's very important, whenever you feel that your soil is hard like this, you'll have to immediately uproot your succulent. Check for the roots and then move your succulent to a better soil. So this is how the good soil looks like. The moment you touch it with the finger, the soil should move freely. This is what porous, loose, well draining soil looks like. So you need to have a soil that exactly looks like this, which should be very easily movable, which should be very loose. With the slightest touch of your finger, the soil should move apart, and you can see how beautiful this succulent looks, how the leaves are open, they are well hydrated, and the succulent is happy in this soil. So that was all about the soil related dehydration. Now here we are going to be talking about the root kind of a dehydration. This happens when the roots are completely lost, maybe because of the root rot, or probably the roots are completely dried and cannot bounce back. Because of this, the succulent is not able to absorb any water. You can see how bad the roots look. Even the stem is completely dried up. Another indication, you can see there are aerial roots, which indicates that the succulent wants to live. That's why it's putting out these aerial roots. But over here, now I don't have an example of a dehydrated succulent in this situation, because here the aerial roots are present. The succulent is looking very plump because it is absorbing water from these aerial roots. So some of you might have a question that the aerial roots are already present. So what's the big deal? I mean, the other roots are already dead, so at least the aerial roots are alive, so there is no need to make a change. Now guys, remember, aerial roots will only be helpful as long as there is moisture in the air. And remember, as a climate, as a season changes, the amount of moisture tends to get reduced. Right now it's the monsoon season, so there is a lot of moisture in the air, and that is why the succulent is doing quite well. But if this was summers, then this aerial roots would have dried up and the succulent would have died. So it's very important. Now another important thing over here to note is, guys, this root rot can also, or the stem rotting or the stem drying here, what you can see is also related with soil dehydration as well. Now if the soil is very compact and very heavy, it is going to suffocate the roots, it is going to suffocate the stem, due to which the stem will start to dry like this. So this will only happen if you have not made any changes to the soil, you have just let it go as it is. Over the period of time, this is how the stem and the roots will start to dry. So it's very important to change the soil. So let me quickly show you how to fix this. Now all you have to do is just find a spot wherein it's very fresh. Probably you'll have to take out some leaves. Again, these leaves can be used for a leaf propagation, but you need to have that area which is a clean cut. Basically, you do not want a cut
that has a lot of brownings. Now over here I have taken off the leaves and I'm going to give a cut wherein I tend to see that there is fresh green part. Now guys, I've gone ahead and given a cut. You can see now I do not have a lot of browning on this cut part, which means that it will work out really well. And this is how the dried part of the stem looks like. Now I know even the aerial roots have been separated, but it's absolutely fine. We will be getting new roots on the cut part of the succulent. Now the next part remains the same. We are going to use some cinnamon powder and ensure that this cut part does not come in contact with any moisture or water. Another important thing guys, over here there is another sign that you can see the leaves are not in proper shape. Now that's not because of the stem getting dried or the roots getting dried, but there is an issue of mealybugs. So I will be taking care of these mealybugs. So as I'm anyways going to be using cinnamon powder on the cut part of the succulent, I thought I might as well show you the magic power of cinnamon powder. So as you can see over here, the mealybugs are nicely tucked in between the leaves. It's very difficult to notice, but you can see that they are nicely tucked in between the leaves. So let me quickly get hold of the cinnamon powder. Now you do not need a lot of cinnamon powder, just a pinch of cinnamon powder is enough. Just sprinkle it on the mealybug directly and you will see what happens next. It just takes a couple of seconds and they start getting irritated with that strong pungent smell from cinnamon powder and they cannot bear it, and you can see it's running for its life. So guys, this is how cinnamon powder tends to work. It tends to repel insects, but again it has to be done on regular basis. It's not like you use it once and it's done. The mealybugs keep coming back, and so you have to do this application every now and then whenever you feel that your succulent is getting infected with mealybugs. So that was the end of the mealybug, but now coming back to the cut part of the succulent, the process remains the same. We are going to dip it in cinnamon powder. It's the same process what we follow for a bee-headed succulent or for a stem cutting. We are going to let it callus, keep it away from water and moisture. Either you can lay it on dry soil or on the dry surface and wait for it to air root. Now again, air rooting depends upon your environment. There is no set time frame for it. So guys, this was all about dehydration part 2. As I said, this is slightly complicated because it's related with soil and roots. So whenever you feel that your soil is incorrect, you need to make the changes ASAP. Otherwise, if you ignore these signs, if you ignore changing the soil, then it will lead to the next stage of dehydration. Now the second type of dehydration is going to be very difficult, because in that kind of dehydration you'll have to do a lot of cuttings, because if you do not change the soil, if the soil tends to suffocate the roots, then the roots will either get rotted or they will dry. That will also dry up the stem. So guys, I hope that this video on dehydration was helpful to you. If it was, please hit the like button. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing to it. Until then, take care, stay safe and keep propagating.